So while you're doing that, while I'm sharing my screen, yeah, so good morning again, everybody. I hope, it's interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about franchising today, but I'm going to do it a little differently, I hope, than what you might expect. We have a lot of educated people in this meeting, and you all know about franchising and what it is, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to do it a little bit differently. And also, while I'm sharing my screen here, I want to make a plea. Give me a second. Okay. I want to make a minor request to everyone. No, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do presentation mode, right? Yeah, slideshow. Okay. So my request is this, right now I do, like Mark McClellan, I do franchise consulting. So I help people find a franchise that is a right fit for them, right? I take them through all of the different, assessments and different things to learn about them and really try to find, the right opportunity for them. And I'm going to talk more, not a lot, but a little bit more about that. But my background is really on the franchise operations side. And so I hope you haven't lost anybody. I hope, especially Will and Todd, you're on still for this particular request. So because I'm a franchise operations guy by profession, by heart, at heart, et cetera, I'm not really the development person. I look at things a little differently, right? I look at them from an operations standpoint, and I look at them from because I've worked with franchisees and helping them develop and grow their business for so many years. I kind of look at it from that perspective. As part of that, at the constant urging of my wife, and I finally gave in, I actually have a contract to write a book on being a successful franchise. Publishers has agreed to do it for me, so I'm real excited about that. And I want to, the part of this book is about sharing some of the experiences that I've had and some of the folks that I've helped, and my experience as a franchisee too, because I also was a franchisee. And how do you be successful, right? And the book is titled, So You Bought a Franchise. Now what? Right? What do you do now? How do you be successful? How do you make this thing a going concern? And, despite whatever else is going on out there. A big part of what I'm doing with this is I am interviewing successful franchisees on various topics, things from, goal setting and local marketing and how do you make money in a franchise and, all kinds of different topics, like 9 different chapters. And so I am looking for franchisees that are willing to participate in this project with me and spend about an hour of time with me to talk about what are they particularly successful at? And I want to, include those quotes and, all that kind of stuff in the appropriate chapters for the book. So my request is, if you know of a franchisee that might be willing to participate in this, or even if you're not sure if they're willing to participate, I'll have the conversation with them. I'll reach out to them. If you give me their contact information, I would love to, to include as many different franchisees from as many different industries as I can in this project. And of course, acknowledgments and all those types of things for anybody that helps me out with this. So that's my plea to start off with. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about franchising, really just very briefly go through a quick history, some fun facts, some of the pitfalls and pluses, and kind of give you an idea of what's going on in the industry today, as opposed to really talking to you more about what I do, really kind of give you an kind of an overview of what's new with franchising, what is going on, and what are some of the hot buttons and things that are happening in the industry, because there are a bunch of things really that are happening in franchising today. And that's really what we're going to talk about. So there's your agenda. I'm not going to read it for you. You know how to read. So hopefully we can keep this moving pretty quickly. I am going to share with you, even despite some of the negative things that are going on, I truly believe that franchising is the best way for pretty much anybody to get into business. Although Not everybody, because some people are too entrepreneurial for the franchise world, in my opinion. So, fun facts on franchising. There's some dispute here as to where franchising really began, and we can have some fun talking a little bit about that. But according to the International Franchise Association, it really kind of started, modern franchising started with Benjamin Franklin. Go figure, right? The greatest American inventor of ever. And so, he cut a deal with this guy in South Carolina. So here you got Franklin in Philadelphia, and he's publishing this Poor Richard's Almanac, and he wanted to expand his distribution of his almanac. So what does he do? He cuts a franchise deal essentially with this publisher in South Carolina to publish this thing for him in South Carolina, but also to participate in it, it was kind of a leasing deal, right? He leased the rights to publish this thing. So, and that's kind of modern franchising in the United States. It really started to expand, as you can see. He started to, this thing worked with Whitmarsh, and so he got into, international franchising, and yeah, pretty inventive guy. The first modern day franchise is credited anyway to, as you see here, this Martha Matilda Harper, who actually had hair shops in the 1890s. And that agreement is pretty close to what you might see in a franchise agreement today, because it had specific things in there about training and field visits and advertising. And so, think about that, 1891. At the end of World War I, 1918 or so, Rexall was one of the first franchises that were offered. Fast food became a franchise in 1925 with A&W. Now, you might say, wait a minute, A&W has been around since 1919, and that is correct. They have been, but they started franchising in 1925. And then what you see today really is attributed to in the 1950s, when franchising really started to explode, mostly in the fast food world. And, the IFA was formed in 1960. And an interesting story about the IFA. So a bunch of entrepreneurs got together, and they were trying to figure out what's going to happen with franchising, because, a lot of things were starting to happen, and they were concerned about some regulations and trying to create some lobbying efforts so that they could promote their interests and things of that nature. And so several of them got together, and one of them happened to be Bill Rosenberg, who was the founder of Dunkin' Donuts. And the story goes that they're sitting around and they're talking and they're talking and talking. And finally, Rosenberg just got fed up with the whole conversation, I guess. And he takes a $100 bill out of his pocket, slams it down on the table, and says, "There's my money. We're forming this organization. We're calling it the International Franchise Association. Who else is in?" Now, I never met Bill Rosenberg, but Jim, maybe you have. Mark, maybe you have. The stories I've heard, I believe that story, because what I've heard about Bill Rosenberg, that's exactly the kind of thing that he would have done. So anyway, pretty interesting character. So those are some fun facts about franchising. Today, franchising, as you see here, it's huge, right? Around 4,000 or so brands, give or take, whatever that exact number is. $400+ billion industry, all kinds of jobs, all kinds of brands. Any industry you can think of, there's probably a franchise. And even, believe it or not, even so, insurance adjusting, right? Those guys that climb on your roof when you got a hailstorm or you get in a car accident, they come out and evaluate your car and determine, how much of a claim you have and all that. There is a franchise adjusting franchise, all right, an insurance adjusting franchise, believe it or not. I didn't know that until a couple of months ago, but it's true. The vast majority of people have positive views of franchising, despite some of the things that I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes. So that's good. Even though, and what I found interesting here is favorable view of a local franchise, 81%. Most people don't realize that all these national brands are actually locally owned small businesses. And so they think they're supporting a large corporation, when in fact they're really supporting a small business. And I think that's part of the education process for us in the franchising industry, is to let them know, you're not necessarily, yeah, you are partially supporting a large corporation, but you're really supporting your neighbor, this locally owned franchise. So what are the hot industries right now? A lot of this has changed over the past year, obviously, because of COVID, right? Home services are extremely hot right now. Not just from a franchising standpoint in terms of people wanting to get into these businesses, but in terms of these are the types of businesses that did extremely well through COVID and are continuing to do well, anything related to home. And you see a bunch of them here, all kinds of different types of franchises in the home services industry. And it makes sense, right? I mean, we're all cooped up in our houses and looking around and saying, man, I really need to do something with this kitchen. So these businesses have been doing well. Senior care, obviously a growing industry, lots of franchises, and anything related to senior care, things like 101 Mobility, for example, which is they modify your home. They do disability, and they do the bars in your bathroom and ramps and the stair lifts for your stairs, the automatic stair lifts, all those types of things to create better accessibility so that people can stay in their homes for longer periods of time. So anything around the senior care is continuing to do well and will continue to do well. As we all get older, we're going to need more and more of those things. Automotive oil change continues to do pretty well. There's some really exciting new franchises in that industry as well. But that whole industry is continuing to do well because, as people hold on to their cars longer, they're taking better care of them. So, they need to service them more often. Pet care has been, I like dogs, I like animals, but I'm not a pet owner, right? So I didn't really get this, but you'd be amazed what pets are not pets, right? They're kids, and people are spending money on their pets like they're their kids. And so pet care, especially like doggy daycare kind of stuff and training and all that, it's amazing what's happening. Medical franchises are becoming more and more popular as well. There's a franchise out there that kind of does pain management that incorporates all the different types of non-invasive pain management under one roof. So they've got a chiropractor, a physical therapist, massage therapist, acupuncture, and they bring it all under one roof. And they're still fairly new, but they're starting to do pretty well. And then, of course, QSR. Now, I wouldn't say the restaurant industry is doing well, but QSR, anything with a drive-through, has continued to do well and has continued to be popular. So those are kind of the hot industries right now. Some of the things that are happening, obviously, in the franchise industry, and this impacts everybody that's in franchising, right? A lot of PE firms buying brands. So right now, there's 343 brands that are owned by 48 different companies, with some of them owning 20 or more brands. Neighborly, for example, owns home services brands, and so they have over 20 brands. You probably just learned that Inspire Brands picked up Dunkin, and they've got, 5 or 6, maybe 7 different brands now, and they're continuing to look for other opportunities. Some other things that are happening, and I'll talk a little bit about this in a minute too. Some of the regulation stuff that's going on. Joint employer has been a big deal, and really trying to get franchisors to be more responsible for the things that their franchisees are doing or doing that are wrong in terms of labor relations and things of that nature. California AB and Prop 22, a lot of that's happening with a lot of the contract workers, Lyft and Uber and that kind of thing. It's bleeding over into franchises. 7-Eleven is really, unfortunately, creating a lot of that. 7-Eleven has been gaining more and more control over their franchisees and their locations, and that's creating a lot of issues for other franchises out there. So I read an article recently where 7-Eleven even has control remotely of the thermostats in their stores. So their franchisees can't even control the temperature in their location. That's done out of Dallas, Texas. It's a little crazy in my opinion, but it's one of the reasons why there's issues in the industry. And then, but there are many brands out there that do get it. They understand franchisees are partners. We're in this together, and there's a lot of really good brands out there. Unfortunately, it's a few that are kind of creating issues. There's a recent report out, U.S. Senator from Nevada, put this report together. Her and her staff put this report together on the franchising industry. It really focuses on 10 franchises, 7-Eleven, Dickies being 2 of them, Massage Envy being another one. I forget the other ones, and of course it's generated, what generated the need for this report is the increased number of franchise business failures that are backed by the SBA. Right? So it's all about the money. Follow the money, as always. And so as business failures, for example, I'll give you a couple of examples. Dickey's Barbecue, 20% of the SBA loans have defaulted, and the SBA has had those have been charged off. Complete Nutrition, 14%. Quiznos, they had a ton of locations that closed, right? 30% of their SBA-backed loans defaulted. Huntington Learning Centers had 36% of theirs default. So this is obviously creating a lot of heartburn among Congress people, and they're starting to do some things that are going to impact the industry. They're looking at the FDD, for example, which is the controlling document for the franchise industry. Every franchise has to have a franchise disclosure document. And they're starting to crack down on some of these things. They're looking at how accurate is the information in the franchise disclosure document, because a lot of these franchises have actually reported inaccurate numbers and have done things that detrimental to franchisees that are not actually in their franchise disclosure document. So, they're skirting some of the loose regulations around the FDD. Financial performance, typically the item 19. Anybody that knows franchising knows what an item 19 is. There really is no hard and fast rule about what kind of information you have to include in the item 19. So you're going to find it all over the place, including some brands that don't have an item 19 in their FDD, which that's starting to change. I think that's a good thing, actually. I think this needs to be in here, and you need to create and gather as much detailed information about the financial performance of your franchise locations, so that people looking at your brand can really evaluate, can I make money at this? How profitable is this going to be? Same thing with the item 21, the actual corporate, the franchisor financial statements. Those are kind of all over the board too. And, I think that's important information for a franchisee, a prospective franchisee, to understand how profitable and how stable is my franchisor. Is this franchise going to go away in a few years? So I think there's some good things coming out of some of the frankly deceptive practices with a handful of brands. And unfortunately, it's like any other industry. A handful of people give the industry a bad name. And that's a kind of a challenge that we need to overcome. A lot of people don't know this. I'm sure you guys get this, but a lot of folks don't know that there's tons of different ways to franchise or finance franchise opportunities. There are, one of the biggest ones is the 401k capitalization. It's called the ROBS, which I don't really like to use that term. It doesn't sound very good, but it's the rollover business startup program that allows you to take your 401k and use that to start up your business, penalty-free and tax-free. A lot of folks don't know about that. There are actually portfolio loans as well, where people can, if they have a stock portfolio, you don't need to cash out your stock. You can take a loan based on the value of that and use that to start up your business and maintain your ownership of the stock. A lot of folks don't know about that. So, there's lots of different things that we can do to help folks that want to get into a franchise business. And frankly, some of these things are, they're not available to independent people, right? Because, you can't necessarily, like SBA loans, for example. The SBA will finance franchises before they'll finance an independent startup, because they've got some proof with a franchise and a track record and those types of things. So there's some advantages there. So why do I think franchising is the best path to ownership? Now, and as I said, I don't think franchising is for everybody. People that are too entrepreneurial minded, that really don't like following a system that somebody else created, that want to recreate the wheel, those are not good potential franchisees. You want to have people that are pretty much good soldiers. That's why veterans make great franchisees, because they're used to processes, systems, a chain of command, and give me the system and let me execute the hell out of it. That's what a good franchisee does. They don't recreate the wheel. Doesn't mean that they're not creative and they can't add to and enhance and better the system, but they work within the confines of the existing system. So franchising allows people to go into business for themselves, but not by themselves. You've got partners, not just the franchisor. You've got a group of franchisees as well, right? Whereas if you're an independent business owner, you got to go out and create that. Franchising has a built-in system of a network that you can use to help you in your business. You don't have to create it. You just follow the system. One of the best franchisees I ever had that I ever worked with was an Arby's franchisee. And he used to say all the time, why do I want to go create the system? I paid good money to be able to use this operating system. All I got to do is use it and execute it. To me, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, Dave, if I may, in my franchising experience, we had a term that, to your point, entrepreneurs don't make great franchisees. The people have to have a little bit of independence to make it work as a franchisee. We refer to them as entrepreneurs instead of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Doug. That's a great term. So, like I said, built-in group of peers, typically a faster ramp up, right? Because you've got a system in place to help you get started up. And depending on the business, depending on the brand, the specific brand and the type of business, brick and mortar is going to take longer to ramp up than something that like a service business that you're going to start up out of your house. But it is typically a faster ramp up because you've got people there to help you figure out, we've learned, we've made all the mistakes before. We're going to help you avoid those. Obviously, name brand recognition and franchising are two of the things that are important as well. So, so how do I help folks? And I tell people this. My experience as a franchisee was bad. I had, unfortunately, I had I wasn't dealing directly with the franchisor. I had a master licensee, and he just sucked. He didn't do anything. He didn't help. He didn't spend the marketing money on marketing. He spent the marketing money on finding new franchisees. It was a horrible experience. I will never, ever put anybody in that same type of experience. And I tell people this. I openly share I don't give them the details, but I share that I had a bad experience. And so, I'm real sensitive to that. And I vowed to myself, I'm never going to put somebody in that. And so there's brands in our portfolio, 300 plus brands that we work with, that I won't put people in. I mean, we try to weed those out, but still, even 300, 350 brands, there's a couple in there. I'm not putting people in those brands because they're just not the type of, they don't reach the level of execution and support that I want them to reach for my satisfaction. So, it is what it is. But, we guide people through, we help them with, I have some attorney contacts, financing contacts, if they need those. I don't push those on people, but if they need an attorney, if they need somebody to help them with financing, I have that to be able to offer folks. But then I'm also, I'm not going to drop them when they sign their deal. I'm going to stay with them and make sure that they're happy and they're doing well and, that kind of thing. So I ask, the folks that I would like to work with really fall into one of three categories. One is somebody who just is tired of being in the corporate world, as you folks all know here. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but maybe wants to have a little bit more, some of the benefits that I talked about a minute ago. And so that could be a good person for a franchise. Somebody who is out of work and still has a 401k and is willing to use that to invest in their own business, in their own future. And then potentially an existing business owner who maybe wants to diversify, especially now after COVID and some things that have been happening. They realize, maybe putting all my eggs in one business basket is not a good idea. So there's opportunities out there for those folks as well. I'm going to be done and just open it up for questions.
What, Dave, based on the franchisors that franchises that you represent, what tends to be like a typical overall initial investment, not just the franchise fee, but equipment or, I don't know, service
Right.
platforms or whatever.
Yeah. Believe it or not, there are, especially when you get into things like home services, anything that is a home-based, service-based business, definitely total investment less than 100,000. Some as low as 60 or 70,000. There's actually, I know of one that you can get into with less than 15,000 cash if you have a 640 or better credit rating, because they'll finance 90% of it, of the total investment.
Yeah, and Doug, I think the average is somewhere around 170 to 225. Most people getting into business.
Yeah, it just depends. Obviously, a brick and mortar is going to be, more, right?
Yeah, I know the numbers well for fast food, QSR, fast casual, etc., restaurants, and even the big dogs.
Yep.
But that's why the other franchising alternatives, because the way it's branched out, is quite an opportunity for the right people.
It really is. Yeah.
It's so important to validate, and that's one of the things Dave and I am sure totally help people do is ask the right questions. Make sure you're talking to existing franchisees that are helpful in giving you financial understanding, what you're actually going to do in the business, how much time you have to put into it.
Right.
It's just important. Good stuff. Dave, you did a good job of talking about the franchise industry.
Thanks. Yeah, validation is the critical piece, right? And I tell people, you got to, if you're not talking to a minimum, absolute bare minimum of 10 existing franchisees, don't waste your time. Talking to a couple is not enough. And also don't talk to the ones that they recommend, because every franchisor is going to tell you, yeah, go talk to these franchisees. No, go through the FDD. Every franchisee is listed. Their contact information is listed. Call whoever the hell you want, but you got to call at least 10 or 20 of them.
Hey, Dave, let's say I've got a consulting client who wants to grow and would be an ideal candidate to franchise their business. What would you recommend to the group for dealing with a situation like that?
Where they want to they want to be the franchisor?
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a company that I work with that helps them with that, soup to nuts. They will put together the FDD. They will get them registered. They will help them, actually not help them. They will put together operating manuals, training manuals, the marketing plan for where do I go find these franchisees? What does an ideal franchisee look like in my business? They'll put together your profile for your ideal franchisee. They'll do all of that work and more for a flat rate fee. And so if somebody wants to, somebody knows of a business that wants to become a franchisor, yeah, we can absolutely help them with that.
Great. Now, Mark, does your company provide those services too?
Yeah, no, it's same links with different companies. There's, matter of fact, one of the gentlemen that came on here and did a presentation is going through the process right now, which is kind of Eagle One, Mike. He is going through the process of franchising his business right now. He's on a couple podcasts. I'd have to get the links to those. They're actually following the process with him in 4 different podcasts on, beginning that venture, how's it going, getting registered, the initial contact with clients, and then how the closing rate. He's going to learn a lot because his expectations are up here. He's probably going to land right in the middle. Opening your own franchise, you need, we just talked about validation. If you get out of the gate, you don't have validation, and you're just trying to sell an idea, you might as well go on Shark Tank because you're probably not going to get a lot of clients with an idea.
No, you need to have
validated principles and a ability to show that income can be made out of the company.
Right. Yeah. You need to have call them company-owned units. Certain number, at least 3 or 4 company-owned units, so that you can show some valid numbers to these folks. The other thing you got to understand is you really need to have a conversation with someone before you even get into all of that about what's it like to be a franchisor versus being an entrepreneur, because it's completely different,
right?
Totally different mindset.
You're right. You've got to have proof of concept. But what's interesting to me is that there's so many people that are itching to get into franchisor role that really have no business at this point. And so many other people that have viable businesses with proof of concept that don't necessarily even think of that as an opportunity to grow their business.
Right.
So that, that alone would probably be a good presentation to the members of ITB Partners to have them, thinking about that as business development for their clients.
Yeah, I think everybody's heard the old adage, what's the best way to grow is use other people's money.
Right.
Franchising, if you have a valid concept, the easiest way to scale, the fastest way to scale in today's industry is to franchise that concept.
Yeah. Now, here's the caveat that I would put on that. If someone is wanting to franchise because they think they're going to make a lot of money, it's not a good reason to franchise. They need to do it because they want to grow their brand. They want to grow their concept and create a legacy, and all the things that have to do with other than money, right? Because, like you said, there's a lot of folks out there that they're in it for the money, and that's where these bad franchises come from.
Anybody heard of Quiznos? The only thing they cared about was selling the next franchise.
Right.
They didn't support their folks. They didn't do anything. You paid your money and you get the here. This is how you make a sub. Good luck.
That's right.
Yeah. Good points all. Well, the other thing too is that if you want to be in business without any partners, then forget about franchising, because I don't know. I think franchisees might be more difficult to manage than shareholders. And you've got to go into that understanding that these people have a say in the business, and they can make your life very difficult if you don't live up to your side of the bargain.
Yeah, that's one of the things I meant when I was talking about, you got to make sure you understand what it is to be a franchisor versus being an entrepreneur.
Any other questions for Dave? We're pretty just much talking to ourselves at this point in time. Other than Ken and Todd and Johan,
it's gotten a little smaller, but
I will put in another plug. If you do know any franchisees out there, I am looking for some folks that are willing to have a conversation with me. And
are you looking for them early in are you looking for all of them, like early in, or somebody that's been in 3 years or more?
I'm looking for people that are really good at something.
Okay.
Right. So they're either really good at, developing a team, or they're really good at local marketing. They just get it. Right. Or they're really good at running their P&L and they know how to make money, or somebody that maybe has exited. We have a guy here with an exit strategy business. That's kind of like, I think we talked about this on one of the calls, begin with the end in mind. When do you start your exit strategy? Pretty much anything around being successful as a franchisee, because, this book is going to be written primarily for new franchisees, but really any franchisee that wants the information. It's also going to be written because this publisher does a lot of educational stuff. And hopefully this is going to be marketed to colleges and universities as a textbook in their entrepreneurial programs.
Oh, terrific.
Awesome. Dave, I have a gentleman, I'll send you his information. They were up to about 60 locations before COVID. They have these little carts that are in malls and stuff. And they are now down to about 30, but of course they're looking to start this year ramping back up. They're going to try to start ramping back up their franchises again. It was working well for those, and 30 hung in there and have gotten through this. So
surprising, especially in malls.
Yeah,
Ken, I'll throw in a plug. If they need carts and kiosks, we best ones right here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. They have to have refrigeration in the carts.
We put all of it in there. It's all electric wired, And I also invite anybody that wants to come over. It's in Canton, Georgia. It's an absolute facility. We are a premier vendor for Starbucks, and we just picked up, like I said, the Coke account. So,
and that's
working on
perfect
Dunkin right now too. I'm visiting with them on the 27th.
Okay, that's perfect because the company is out of New York, but he's right here in Atlanta. So
Nice. Yeah.
so he's in Buckhead. I've been trying to get him to join the group, or at least visit the group, but he's on calls at this time right now. So he's not able to do it.
Well, we'd love to tour him around the facility if he's interested.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dave?
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to talk to you. I don't know if I'm the right fit to help you, but if I can help you and you want to chat, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. So.
No, great. I appreciate that, Todd. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, folks, we did pretty good. We're only 5 minutes over, and we had a lot of great presentations today. So I would really encourage you to follow up with Ken Fainer if you're interested in really improving the quality of your individual marketing and using ITB Partners as your platform. It's a very effective way to attract new business, and I'm a firm believer in email marketing. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, or suggestions? You guys have a great weekend. Thanks, Mark. Give Frank my best for participating, and there's some additional people I want you to introduce to you guys to help you build your business out there.
Yeah, Frank was very complimentary on text, and he wants to. He's looking forward to July.
Terrific.
Talk to you.
All right, folks.
Hey, guys.
Have a great weekend.
See ya.